Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take that fire hose of information you send us, all your articles, your research, your notes, and we try to distill it into pure, focused insight. Today, we're taking a very structured look at the world. We're kind of peering behind the curtain of human systems to understand how they work, or maybe more often, how they fail.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission today is really one of architectural critique. We're not looking at, specific people making bad choices.
Right.
We're looking at the hidden systems, the organizational, the relational structures that introduce these systemic flaws and biases. We're really unpacking sources that look at the deepest flaw in almost any human system.
And what's that?
What happens when the system's stated goals, whether that's advancing knowledge or achieving justice or even just accurate measurement, what happens when those goals conflict, sometimes violently, with the incentives the system provides?
Conflict, yeah.
That conflict creates what we're calling the integrity gap.
And the sources you shared with us are incredibly diverse. It's a mix of academic critiques on research integrity, deep dives into power dynamics, in relationships, in organizations, these eye-opening analyses of everything from restorative justice all the way to survey methodology. It's like a complete societal X-ray, showing us how the structure really dictates the outcome.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this. And we have to start with a section that is, I have to say, genuinely alarming. It focuses on the scientific community. And the materials suggest that the very pursuit of fame, of career success in academia, might be actively undermining the very foundation of scientific knowledge itself.
It feels like a total paradox, doesn't it? We assume scientists are driven by these, intrinsic motives, curiosity, passion, this desire to truly advance human understanding.
Of course.
But the sources remind us that scientists are also rational actors. They're operating within an economic system, a career system, fame, impact. It exists on a continuum, from a small, useful finding to something genuinely transformative.
And the most successful strategy isn't just pure curiosity.
No. The most successful career strategy requires synthesizing both. The intrinsic motives and the extrinsic ones, grants, money, and, crucially, publishing in a very small handful of top-tier journals.
So the goal is to advance knowledge, but the real incentive is to publish novel, flashy results and do it quickly in these high-impact journals, and that's where the system breaks.
Precisely. The model argues that the current incentive structure is, it's detrimental to advancing knowledge. When you combine this intense emphasis on novelty with the convention of using a very, very lax 5% significance level.
The classic P less than 0.05.
Exactly. Rational scientists are encouraged to pursue a specific and frankly dangerous strategy. Conduct a large number of exploratory studies, each with very low statistical power.
And if you run a study with low statistical power, you're just highly likely to report a false positive.
You are. And the conclusion, which is supported by some extensive modeling, is the really terrifying takeaway. Most published findings are likely to be false.
Wow.
Because the studies are fundamentally underpowered, they are just highly likely to be erroneous. And that is a conservative estimate, because we already know that analytical flexibility, what people casually call p-hacking, is happening. And that only pushes those results further toward being unreliable.
It's staggering. If that's true, then the metrics we use to judge academic quality, like the impact factor, are rewarding the completely wrong behavior.
They absolutely are. The impact factor, or IF, is the measure everyone chases for journal prestige. But it is such a flawed measure of quality. Think about it.
Right.
The IF doesn't distinguish between citations that confirm and extend the original findings versus those that criticize and debunk them. It just reflects influence, not validation.
So we're structurally rewarding bad science, or at least unreliable science. The impact factor shows influence, but if I cite a study to prove it's wrong, that still counts as a point for the impact factor. That's absurd.
It is absurd. And the sources point out this classic governance problem. As soon as any index, like the IF, becomes the measure of choice, authors and institutions immediately start adapting. They start to actively play the system to boost their scores.
So if the system is designed to reward quantity over quality, how do we fix the science? This sounds like a cultural shift that needs to happen at the statistical level.
It does. The problem really stems from this obsession with the binary pass-fail p less than 0.05 threshold. We need to shift the focus radically away from that and toward the true quality metric.
Which are what?
Effect size and confidence intervals.
Okay, let's translate that for everyone listening. What does effect size tell us that the p-value doesn't?
So think of it this way. The p-value tells you if a door is open, if there is a statistically significant effect.
Okay.
But the effect size tells you how wide that door is, how important that effect actually is in the real world. By focusing on high statistical power, we get greater precision in estimating that actual effect size.
Which lets researchers confidently say if a finding is genuinely important, or if it's just totally trivial.
Exactly.
That sounds like a powerful long-term shift. But are there practical structural changes we can implement, like right now, to force transparency and make science more trustworthy immediately?
Yes, and the focus is increasingly on structural transparency and openness. One mechanism gaining traction is the peer reviewers' openness initiative.
What's that?
The core idea is to empower the reviewers, the people on the ground, by suggesting they collectively withhold a comprehensive review unless the authors affirm open practices, like sharing their underlying data and materials.
That sounds great in theory, but doesn't demanding all that before review just slow everything down and create another administrative barrier that scientists will just try to game?
It's a risk, sure, but the alternative is this continued crisis of trust. The goal isn't just to create new bureaucracy, it's to normalize transparency. And for researchers looking for something practical right now, the sources point to the consensus-based transparency checklist. It's available in a long 36-item version and a shorter 12-item one.
So authors can just submit this with their paper.
Exactly. It provides all the critical information needed to evaluate how robust their finding actually is. These efforts show that the biggest problems, like the replicability crisis, require what the sources call team science.
Many minds, combined efforts, pooled resources.
To change the system from the bottom up.
It's so interesting how that same pattern of perverse incentives we saw in academia, where individuals prioritize self-interest and career advancement, it just shows up the minute someone gains organizational or relational power. So here's where we move from the integrity of research to the integrity of, well, our social interactions and relationships. Let's talk about how power affects how we treat other people.
This is where a framework called interdependency comes in. When we talk about power in a relationship, be it a romantic partner, a boss, a gatekeeper, it all stems from one person's dependence on the other to get what they want.
So power isn't about shouting louder.
Not at all. It's about controlling access to resources or outcomes the other person desires.
And the research suggests that just having high power fundamentally changes how we perceive and interact with others.
It does, profoundly. High-power individuals, and this is especially true outside of very close relationships and in Western cultures, are far more likely to be self-oriented.
Self-oriented, what does that look like in practice?
Well, they're less likely to accurately read emotional expressions in others, they're more likely to objectify other people, and they often prioritize their own interests, even when they know how their actions affect others.
So it leads to measurable deficits in compassion and just willingness to help.
It does. Power essentially narrows your perspective, making the powerful person's worldview revolve primarily around themselves.
Exactly. And that self-orientation has very specific relational consequences. I mean, one study hypothesized that high perceived relationship power would be associated with increased interest in, what was the term?
Alternative partners.
Alternative partners.
Right.
Or extraditic desire. For the non-psychologists among us, does that basically mean increased interest in exploring options outside the primary relationship?
It does. Increased interest or increased desire for someone outside the existing relationship. The sources explore how even just temporary feelings of power can influence that interest, linking the ability to satisfy one's own desires to the potential to wreck a commitment.
Now let's move this into the workplace. Power dynamics there can manifest through these incredibly subtle biases that affect careers. The sources point out how linguistic biases implicitly communicate stereotypes, for instance, about women in medicine.
Oh, linguistic bias is such a powerful mechanism for maintaining stereotypes because it's so hard to confront. Overt discrimination is clear, right? But these subtle, almost invisible forms of gender bias, they're difficult to describe, to explain, and to address, especially if people feel unsafe speaking up.
It creates this persistent structural irony.
Yes. Women dominate the front lines of healthcare jobs, but they often struggle to break into the executive suite. The system's architecture just steers different groups to different levels of power.
And the power dynamic doesn't just affect promotion, it affects employee motivation too. I'm thinking specifically about the concept of learned helplessness being organizationally induced.
This is a devastating consequence of a poor leadership structure. Learned helplessness is organizationally induced when leaders routinely take credit for their subordinates' successes.
My great vision led to this win.
Right, but then they blame them for any failures. Your incompetence caused this problem.
That structure has to utterly crush internal motivation.
Absolutely. It teaches employees that success, that recognition is simply unobtainable regardless of their effort. If I believe the outcome is outside my control, why would I even try?
The system has trained them into resignation.
It has.
And we also see power popping up in unexpected places.
Right.
And through delegated responsibility, creating these gatekeepers we might not even recognize.
A great example is the administrative assistant in a primary care physician's office, or the secretary who handles scheduling. They wield enormous delegated power.
They're the gatekeepers.
They are. They control access to the doctor, to specialists. An administrative assistant issuing referrals, for instance, essentially determines which specialists a patient can see within a managed care network. Their power isn't formal authority in the traditional sense, but it's absolute control over a vital resource, access.
If we connect this thread of integrity and fairness to the bigger picture, the need for these structurally sound systems isn't limited to the academic ivory tower or the office.
Not at all.
It is a central feature of the justice system and ultimately of information gathering itself.
Exactly. We often equate justice with punitive systems or, high-level elite diplomacy deals made by powerful people behind closed doors. Restorative justice, or RJ, offers a radical structural contrast to all that.
So how does it shift the focus?
Restorative justice fundamentally shifts the focus from who broke the law to who was harmed and how can we repair that harm. RJ practices are, by their nature, face-saving, identity-restoring, reintegrative, participatory, deliberative. They aim specifically at healing the emotions of divided peoples: humiliation, shame, anger, hatred, which traditional punitive systems just make worse.
And this methodology of looking beyond the surface, it isn't just for conflict resolution. It actually feeds back into the scientific integrity we discussed at the start.
That's right. Restorative methodology seeks to develop good explanations and move toward good theories by detecting and correcting flaws, not just forcing consensus. It's the antithesis of the publishing game.
How so?
It rejects the focus on what one source called the meaningless distinction between exploratory and confirmatory research. It prioritizes true understanding over these arbitrary categories.
Can you give us a concrete example of an RJ model that embodies this healing, participatory structure?
One of the most insightful examples is the North Minneapolis African American Circles model. It uses a series of circles for each offender, recognizing that one single conversation cannot address systemic harm.
A series. Tell us more about that structure.
It's a very structured, multi-step process. They start with an interview circle, just to confirm participation. Then, a dedicated circle is held to discuss the crime and develop a social compact.
And a social compact isn't just paying a fine.
Not at all. It's a commitment to address underlying issues, which might include problems with math, finding mentorship in basketball, developing life skills. Subsequent circles monitor the completion of that compact, and it all culminates in a celebration circle when it's done successfully.
That deep structural support seems exponentially more effective than just relying on the threat of punishment.
It is, especially when you factor in the psychological reality of reactance. Deterrent threats, like capital punishment or incarceration, can be interpreted as attempts to limit a person's freedom.
When people feel controlled,
they often experience psychological reactance, which leads them to act contrary to the direction of control. Coercion backfires. That's why RJ dialogue is preferred over state-imposed coercion. It seeks voluntary buy-in.
Moving from justice systems to data systems. The integrity of our knowledge relies so much on accurate measurement, and public trust in that measurement has been severely tested, especially recently.
Oh, absolutely. The COVID-19 pandemic forced this major methodological upheaval in large national surveys. Surveys like the General Social Survey, the GSS, or the Survey of Income and Program Participation, SIPP.
Had to switch everything up.
They had to transition rapidly from established in-person interviews to less reliable telephone or web modes. The SIPP, for example, had to rely entirely on administrative data just to contact new samples. They didn't have current phone numbers for the people they needed to survey.
That shift puts enormous pressure on the respondents, too. How do researchers even ensure people actually respond accurately, especially to something complicated like a government survey?
It requires overcoming some deep public confusion. Qualitative research on the American Community Survey, the ACS, found that respondents often couldn't distinguish between the ACS mail and the decennial census mail.
And that confusion lowers motivation.
Of course. And interestingly, the single most persuasive statement for getting a response wasn't about public service or civic duty.
Or was it?
It was simply stating that their response is required by law.
So the system relies on statutory requirement, not voluntary participation, to gain its initial legitimacy. Once they do respond, what about the quality of the data we actually get back?
Well, measurement quality is paramount. If you want better quality data and less measurement error, established psychometric research suggests you should give respondents more response options.
So instead of a simple 5-point scale, strongly disagree to strongly agree, you go wider.
Exactly. Researchers should use 7-point or even 11-point scales. More options provide greater nuance, allowing respondents to pick a category that more accurately reflects their sentiment.
Which reduces measurement error and gives the researchers richer, higher quality data points.
It's a small structural change with a major impact on the integrity of the data.
So what does this all mean? We've seen that whether you're a scientist fighting these perverse career incentives, or a professional navigating subtle organizational bias, or a participant just trying to respond honestly to a government survey, the integrity of the outcome rests fundamentally on how the system is architected.
The institution, the relationship structure, the survey scale itself.
Right.
The core lesson across all these sources is the absolute need for transparency and accountability in process, whether that's through mandating open science checklists, recognizing the multidimensionality of social issues, or embedding justice systems in democratic participatory deliberation.
These steps are necessary to counter that inherent human tendency towards self-interest and bias when the incentives are all wrong.
Exactly.
And what gives me hope, despite all the alarming findings about false science and subtle biases, is this idea that the biggest, thorniest problems, like repairing a broken scientific model or healing a community division, require many minds, combined efforts, and pooled resources.
It requires team science, not isolated genius.
It does.
And we saw that in the justice section, right? How restorative systems have to be bottom-up, owned by the community, to gain legitimacy and defeat that psychological reactance. This model holds true for large-scale political progress, too.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought. We learned that in international diplomacy, when strong, often divided elites fail to make progress, weak but unified domestic democratic forces like peace movements or grassroots NGOs can combine with peacemaking elite factions to actually win the peace. So if the goal is large-scale, sustainable progress that avoids the traps of self-interest we've detailed today, how much should we continue to rely on traditional political and corporate elites, and how much power should we deliberately shift to a unified, democratically competent civil society?
A very big question.
That's what we're leaving you with to consider this week.